Okay, so let us start with objects. Where's the full screen? My full screen key is not working. Okay, that's okay. Okay, objects means if you're coming from background like C++, what we do is we try to catch hold of the memory that is in the CPU, and then we try to initialize that. Let me get into drawing mode, and then it will be easy to draw things. Okay. So in the first class, the reason we studied about the hardware and RAM and CPU, things like that, is because every concept that we study should be linked back to those basic concepts, and then you want, so that you won't forget about it. All right. So objects means what happens in the memory is this is RAM, and then there are several spaces that RAM has, that these are actually internally they are flip-flops, and then when we send the data, or when we load the data into the RAM, it occupies some space. And for every program, for example, you wrote some program today, and then it is also possible that you open several windows, and then many of these spaces got filled, and then operating system, when it gets closed, when you manually close it, what happens is it releases the memory. Once it releases the memory, it doesn't initialize it back to zeros or whatever you need. So it is just a space of memory. It's like, you can think of it as it's like a plot that you buy, and the plot that you buy may contain stones and small trees, shrubs and herbs. So it is like that. So it is not in a usable state. So what you do next is, in order to build home or any property on top of it, first you clean this up. So the cleaning part is actually the beginning of initialization. So there are two processes when we talk about objects, creating objects. One process is allocate, and then second process is cleaning it up, and third process is initializing it. So all these things happen automatically in higher level languages like C++, not C, in C, C++, and Java. So what you do is, you ask for a memory, it returns back the memory. And objects means it's not only the memory, it has a certain structure. So inside this memory, once you initialize something, now we have an object in the sense the piece of memory, and there are some data inside this, something like these are the data, and it is organized in certain fashion. So in order to access these pieces of memory, we have some interfaces to attach to it. So these interfaces are nothing but operations. So this data is nothing but the attributes. So the process is, first you ask for memory, and then you initialize it with something, and then you have some interfaces in order to access it, in order to modify the attributes. So let us take an example of car. So when we say car, we can think of it as a real world object. So car has many parts built into it. So these can be imagined, or this can be termed as attributes of that particular car. And then operations are nothing but the operations that we do on top of it. That, for example, brake is a object inside that object. So that is also an attribute, and the operations that is possible on the brake is apply brake. So you don't apply clutch on the brake, it is only brake. That means the operation is contained. So The properties of object is very simple. It has two things. One is attributes and another is operations on top of it. These operations are also called as methods. So this is what is object. Now let us get back to the code, and we will see what it means. Okay. So let me open Python interpreter. So in Python, everything is an object. What it means is when Python was designed, so it is the ideas were taken from Java, C++, and some other languages. So the idea was, if you keep everything is an object, there is no confusion. For example, in C++, the basic data types, that is integer, float, all these things are not objects. Objects are when you create a class and then instantiate object out of it. So don't worry about instantiation. We'll talk about in the object-oriented programming. So that is a mixture. But in Python, everything is an object. So let us look at whatever we have studied so far, whether they are objects or not. So let me make A as a list of 3 items. Now, in order to look into this object, we saw that there was a car here. So out of this car, if you want to read the specifications of car, you will ask for a manual, or you will look on the internet, and along with the car you will get a user manual, and it will say what are the parts and what are its names, what are its properties, what you can do, all the things that is related to car. So similarly, in Python there are some functions which you can look up. We have already used it, which you can look up what are the attributes and what are the operations that are possible. So this is a list. So if I just do type of A, that means this gives us the data type of the A. So this class means this is a blue. This is the class list is a blue. Somebody has written code for list, and that class is called as list. Out of that, we are creating one object. Okay. So A is an object of type list. So this is inbuilt. In fact, you can build your own objects. We will see in the object-oriented session, object-oriented programming session. So this is of type A. This is how you look what type it is. So to look into the object, you use something called as dir. So we have looked at this yesterday already. So I was telling that you don't have to worry about all this double underscore. This is internal implementation in Python. So the reason that the Python uses double underscore is because there is no private, protected and public variables in Python. So everything is public. So in order to tell that do not touch this, or this is internal to Python, so that is how this double underscore have come. That's just a convention. Don't worry about private variables, public variables for now, and just imagine, think that everything is public in Python. But this is by convention that okay, do not modify this, or do not do anything for these properties. So these are the properties which doesn't have double underscore in the beginning and the ending, where you can use this and then you can make use of it. That means the object A, which is of type list, has this attributes and operations. So for example, let us do append. So A dot append, say I am appending number 7 again. So if I look at that, so looking back to the car, what I have done is I have used one of the operations called as append, and I have appended into the list. So similarly, there are several other functions, a clear, copy, extend, all these things. So this is like dir function is like a manual. That means you can look at inside the object. So everything will be listed inside this. Now, for example, now again I will say B is equal to say some tuple 3 and 4, and now let us look at B. So B is of object of class tuple. That means B is an object, and when we send object into the function type, it returns what type it is. So that is about objects. And there is one more. Yesterday we saw that there is a keyword called as id. This id tells us the object id of the object. That means it is roughly translated to the object or the memory location that is inside the RAM. So inside the RAM we have Python objects. So let me just clear that concept. It is like this. So you have RAM. So inside this RAM, when you install Python virtual machine, so Python virtual machine, maybe it consumes this much space. Inside this Python virtual machine, it has variables and objects. So variables are also objects. So these have particular IDs. These are all object IDs. So internally, Python should know where it resides inside the RAM. So this is actually the RAM. So it should know the RAM address. So it will have something like, okay, this object ID has the address of some 0x, some ABCD. This is the address. So this is just an object ID. This is not the value of the address in the RAM. This is just an object ID. This will be internally translated by the interpreter to access those objects. So that is one of the abstractions. So you don't get the direct object address. The ID is what you use. So that is about ID. So these are the typical functions that you use for particular object. So this is about object. So that means you can think of anything of in the real world as an object. For example, you have a chair. Chair can be an object. Chair has legs as an attributes. It has a color. It has size. It has a certain weight. These are attributes, and the functions are, it can be displaced from one this place to another place. It can you can sit on it, and then you can check whether it is empty or not by looking at humans. We just look at it and think automatically calculate whether it is empty or not. If you had to write program, then you had to write that whether it is empty or not. So these are anything that you see. For example, pen has a nib inside that, and then it has a cap and all these components. These are nothing but attributes. And then operations are click the pen, that is clicking. So once you click, the nib comes out for writing, and once you click it again, it may go back. So one of the models of the pen. So there so this everything that you look around you can be translated into the program inside the memory, into the RAM, and then you can keep those attributes, and then you have handles in order to operate on top of that. These handles are nothing but these operations. So these operations are nothing but functions inside a class. So that is about objects. So any questions here, because this is
Digant, is it useful somewhere, this ID while
yes,
programming?
yes. This is useful because what happens. So I'll tell you one of the use cases that I recently faced. So there was a use case where we had maps in the sense of dictionaries, and inside dictionaries we had lists, and inside those lists we had again maps, that is dictionaries. So what was happening was, in for loop, so somebody had written a code that it was trying to assign maps into the list. What is happening was this list was getting modified somewhere else in the program. So what we had to do is, you know that when you pass something into a function, or into you try to assign it to inside the map, what happens is we are essentially copying the address. That means it is not passed by value, it is passed by reference. So these references are copied into the map. So in order to debug, what we did was, it took maybe a couple of days, because nobody thought of it, and then we saw that inside the for loop there was the same IDs were being used, and that object was getting modified somewhere else, and we are getting the wrong values. So it helps a lot when you are debugging. When you are designing something, you must know that whether this object must be used as a reference, or do we need a copy. For example, if you are opening an Excel sheet, and then you are just reading it and doing something, that is no problem. But if you are reading it and then you are modifying it, and if you don't save it, then that's a problem. So maybe you are reading rows of Excel sheet in terms of objects, and then what happens is, maybe you have initial pointers to the whatever you have read, and you are directly writing it, and you forgot to update the dictionaries, and all this kind of complications will get started when you start writing programs. So in order to know that, okay, this is a different object, and this object needs to be put somewhere else in the data structure, so that is when this ID will come into use. So this ID is used for debugging. So we don't use it for normal printing and stuff like that, so it's not useful. But in order to debug, and when you're designing data structure intensive programs, this is a must. So does that answer the question?
Okay. Got it.
So okay, that is about ID, and that is about objects. So we will relook at it in the object oriented programming session, but this is needed in order to move into other concepts, because so far whatever we have studied, lists, tuples, and then sets, dictionaries, all these are internally objects. Okay, how this gets initialized, we'll look in the coming session. So the second topic of this session is user input. So far in C++, what you might have been doing is, you must be using something like as to print something onto the monitor. You will use something called as scanf. That means you are trying to scan the input from the keyboard. So let me just get in drawing mode, and then select all. Okay. I'll just explain what is input from the basics. So we know that. So you should not. I'm repeating this again and again, because you should not forget anything of from the hardware. So we are always interacting with the hardware. So this is RAM, and then we had a CPU. So this is a CPU, and this CPU, this RAM, all these are connected using something called as bus. Okay, so you might have seen that in olden computers, in laptops today we do not see, but in olden laptops, in the motherboard, it looks like something like a belt. So that belt, we had pins, and we had to connect all the things into that. So that is called as bus. Alright. So this CPU, RAM, and keyboard, for example, let me change the color. Okay. For example, keyboard, and there is also mouse. So all this will be internally somehow connected to this bus. So bus will be connected to RAM, and then this is how the components are connected. So once these components are connected, in fact, keyboard is not the only way to input data into the CPU. So there are, for example, there are keyboardless devices, such as your embedded systems, that software that is running in your car, and some CCTV cameras. All this doesn't have input keyboards. So you must remember that since we are using keyboard seamlessly from the time we got used to computers, we always think that keyboard is part of computer. In fact, keyboard is not a part of computer. It doesn't need to be. But in order to read data from this, there are several ways. So the basic way that the CPU works is whenever you press a key on this keyboard, what happens is there is something called as interrupts. So this interrupts get generated. So each interrupt has a certain code. So this, once it looks at that interrupt codes, then there are device drivers which are built on top of this interrupts, and then it translates those interrupts into maybe in for humans it is called as ASCII. Maybe it converts back to ASCII keys. It translates into that, and then ASCII is nothing but it's a standardization for characters. So for example, A has value 97, capital A, and then small a has 64, I guess, yeah, something like that. So that is how, because characters does not exist in the CPU, because it also needs a binary code. So these codes are nothing but ASCII. So you can see that from this input we are now translating this as an interrupt, and then we are translating device drivers picks it up, and then it translates back to ASCII, and then finally it comes onto the monitor is also a certain external device, and then it gets printed. So there is a, maybe there are 20-30 steps inside this, so maybe more, but these are the steps that is involved when you press a key in the computer. So all this is abstracted in Python into one single function that is called as input. Okay, in C++, what you do is you do something called as scanf and getChar. So scanf means it will keep on waiting for an interrupt, and that interrupt anyways get translated to ASCII, and then we have to manually tell that, okay, input, whatever I have got, input is just a binary word. So it will have some binary value that I am translating into either %s for to keep it as a string, or %d to read it as a integer, because this is just a way to translate these ones and zeros into the basic data types that is in C++. But all these things are abstracted because Python is designed for people who do not have to worry about all the internals that we discussed. So Python says, okay, just you give me anything from the keyboard, it is called as input, I will read it from input, and anything that you read inside this, and then I will give you the string. That means now by default this input will give us strings. Let us just run this program. This program is nothing but 2 lines. There is a function, inbuilt function called as input. It takes it waits for us. Let us look at this input example. dir. Where is this? Where is this input example? Okay, I haven't saved it. Okay. Okay, this is outside. Keep it inside, move it inside. Python input. No, this went into something. Okay. Now you can see that so far we have written programs where it just starts interpreting. That means line by line it will simply start executing the instructions. So one by one, it's like 1 2 3 4. Okay, so here we can see that it is waiting for keyboard input. So I'll input something like 3 4 5 or something. Okay, so now it comes here, this line, and it is waiting for another input. So I will input one more. Okay, so I'm not printing it anywhere, so it is just coming out. So let us now make use of the functions that we use so far, and let us look at how it gets printed. Okay, print A, B, and then print what is the type of A and B. because we learned that in theory that it comes as a string. So we need to realize that, we need to make verify that. Okay. So anything that is coming inside, you can see that these two variables, the type of A and type of B is string. So I need, for example, if I want to sum up, let me write a program just to sum A plus B. Okay, not program, that's just a statement, A plus B. Now let us look what happens if I with the strings. Okay, okay. Now you can look here that there are two numbers, and when I did plus, it just got concatenated. That means it did not add numerically, it added, it's two blocks and then brought two blocks into one string. In fact, this is not doing summation, it is just doing the concatenation. So this is called concatenation in string terminology, concatenation. And then now the question would be, so how do I make these strings into the integers? So we saw different types, and these types can be converted into different data types. So in fact, you can convert incoming string into an integer just by a function called as int. Now let us run the program again. Now you can see that now it is not concatenating. I'll just print it again with simple plus, so that you know what we are doing. Let me remove the braces. Okay, now you can see that the input were 343 and 565. So when we do simple A plus B, since it is coming as string, direct string, it is just concatenating. Now we have converted that string into an integer, and then now we can add it. That means this is actually the sum. Right. So that means I just wanted to tell you that input takes in anything that you type here, and it just converts into the string, and it gives you as a string, and it is programmer's choice whether he has to convert back to whatever the data type that he needs into. Okay, for example, if this is a string, and I'll just show you the error that we may face. So I'm just giving two strings actually, and a number. So what is happening here is A is coming as string, B is also coming as string. All right, then when I do A plus B here, this line is okay. Line number 9, it has concatenated. That means it has just placed these two into a new string. But when I try to add a number, and I'm trying to convert that as a number, A is not a number here, so it tells that invalid literal for integer. That means this cannot be converted to integer, of course. So Python has various error mechanisms telling that it won't allow you to convert something into integer. All right, so this kind of type errors, you will value error or type error, you will face when you try to convert from one type to another type. So in that case, you need to stop here and print values here, and find out what is the incoming data type, and then you modify your logic. So that is about input. So if you have or if you know a little bit of Python, in Python 2.7 and all these versions, it was called as raw underscore input, like this. So in Python in Python 3 some version, it is now renamed into in just input. Okay, so that is about it. So this you may require when you want to take inputs from um, from the keyboard, and then you want to do some calculations. So how long it will wait? So that is also a question. So how long it will wait when I try to so I can keep on writing till in a single line. So whenever you press enter, so this enter is also known as new line, and in Windows and Linux, new line is slightly different. So one is Windows also has something called as carriage return. Um, we will look into that. So these are the when you press enter, yeah, a new line opens. But if you want to see that particular character, for example, let me open this. Let me open this. Okay. For example, now you don't see anything, right? So these are spaces. These are so there are some tabs here. I'll add some tabs. Now all of this you are seeing as, when you show it to someone, it's just a blank notepad, but in this notepad there are unseen characters. So these are invisible characters. So for example, your enter is an invisible character, space is an invisible character, and tab is an invisible character. So notepad has a feature where you can see all the characters. You can see that once you click this button, show all characters. In fact, you can write a program to read all the characters, but just to make you understand. So you can see that there is CR and LF. CR means carriage written. LF means line feed. Line feed is nothing but the enter. So these two characters in Windows make a new line character. So why it is called as carriage written is because the computers initial computers were made out of from the imagination of typewriters. So typewriters, you might have seen that in typewriter we used to type something on the paper. Then once you finish the line, you had to push the typewriter to your left, or and then load the paper and again push it back. So this is why it is called as carriage return. That particular piece of hardware in the printer, it is called as carriage return. So in fact, if you want to set to new line, so you had to push it. So that is why it is called as carriage return. So return the carriage back to the first line. So that is the history of this carriage return and line feed. So these terminologies are coming from typewriters. So now we saw that there are invisible characters. So these invisible characters, so here how long it will wait? It will wait until I press enter. That is in Windows it's carriage return, in Linux it is just a new line. So it is so I'll just press Y. So now it's trying to add T and Y. So it is telling that I cannot convert that into integer, so which is correct. So it will input will wait until you press the enter key. So the new line. Okay, so these are the things that is our own input. So it is actually in fact if you study online, or if you ask someone, this is just a not even a 2 minutes concept, but you need to know the internals of these things, because when you face problems you will have to think step by step. Okay, now for example here I am taking a string and then trying to convert it into integer. So that is not possible. So why it is not possible? So now you know the internals, that okay, so there are device drivers internally. So this used to be this comes just as a binary dump, and internally Python converts it into string. So now I need to convert it in my own to my own need. So that is why this is giving us error. So if you do not know this, what will happen is you just look at Stack Overflow or something, and then you will fix the problem and you will forget about it. So I don't want you to learn in that way. I want you to learn from the basics, and always remember the first class where we studied about RAM, CPU, and other things. So everything should translate back to these basic devices or basic things, and then you can learn any programming language. Okay, so that is about a little bit about input. Okay, that is the second concept that I wanted to cover. Now coming to files. So this is the third concept we will learn in today's class. So files are okay. I'll just get into drawing mode so that I can explain. Okay. Now we saw that in our basic PC we have RAM, we have CPU. So this is a CPU, and this hard disk is actually a peripheral device, that is external device. Okay. So when you have a hard disk is like this. You might have seen the hard disk already if you have opened it. So before hard disk, when we were kids, you might remember that there used to be floppies for 5.5-inch floppy, and teacher used to insert that into a floppy disk, and then he used to boot the system and things like that. So what is essentially happening is, what he's trying to do is, in the first class we saw that the data, when you boot the system, the data inside the hard disk, there is a basic input output system. This guy knows something called as master boot record, which is called as MBR, and this master boot record gets initialized into the RAM. From here the operating system that is stored here on the hard disk gets started loading into this. So this gets time loaded. Okay. So we are reading data from a peripheral disk. Forget whether it's a hard disk or a thumb drive or a floppy disk or a CD. So these are all types of memory storage devices. So hard disk is one of them, because hard disk is reliable and it stays for longer time. So if you in olden days, those floppies which I was talking, so you can take that floppy disk, and if you people used to say that if you bring magnets near that, the data will get erased. That is because these disks initially they were made up of magnetic disks. So this idea was coming from something called as the gramophone. You might have seen the gramophone. There used to be a gramophone like this, and then there is a key like this. There is a key like this, and there is a speaker which is like this. And then once you turn on the motor, this keeps running, and this reads the data and then outputs it into the speakers. So that idea was coming from gramophone, which was a magnetic disc, and inside that magnetic disc, the property of magnetism is that it can the magnetic fields can stay longer inside that magnetic disc. So this property was used to make the hard disks. So I think nowadays there are different technologies, but the basic technology was magnetic disk. So this magnetic disk will have a reader and a writer. You can see inside the hardware, it will have a teeth, and inside this teeth, so once you try to write something, that means you are essentially trying to control this handle and make a mark inside the magnetic disk. So now we have a way to make marks and to read those marks inside the hard disk. Now we have abstracted from physical level to the software level. So once I read this, it comes back as binary data. So this is called as we can just call it as byte stream. Okay. So how big the byte stream will be? So we are studying all this because we need to understand what are files. Okay. So once you have a hard disk, data is stored in magnetic way, and then you can see this part. This part is the arm, so it will read and write. And how are the files stored here? So for example, if I am a company which makes hard disk, and if I am a software company which uses that particular hard disk, say that hard disk is manufactured by SanDisk or someone, and then Microsoft is trying to use that, and Microsoft as a company, it has its own way to write the data into the hard disk. That means it can make its mark. For example, it can write the data in spiral way. Maybe it can write the data into in a different way. Maybe it partitions in different fashion. Maybe it partitions in a honeycomb fashion, or whatever it is. Okay. So that means once I have a hard disk, it's just like a pizza. Now you have a pizza, you can cut it anyways. So you can cut it in triangle, you can cut it in honeycomb way, whatever it is. So this is actually a 3D, this one. So it has a certain thickness, So this thickness, once you cut it, so it has sectors and it has partitions. So now these sectors can be modified. So that means a file, if you want to store, you must know how the hard disk is partitioned. So there used to be a lot of different partitions. You might have heard about FAT32, that is file allocation. FAT means a file allocation table. 32 means 32 bit. So those machines were 32 bits. There FAT32. Now I'll just show you what is what we are talking about. You can just go here, and I have a single drive here. So if you just right click here and go to the properties, you can see what type of the file system it is. So it is NTFS. That means it's a network file system. So that is called as NTFS. So there are several file systems: ext, fs2. There are a lot of other file systems in Linux. So when you might have experience in installing operating system, once you install that CD, it will ask for what type I should format the hard drive. That means it is now thinking how to cut the pizza into, whether I should cut into squares, honeycomb, or whatever it is. So that is internal, this one. So just remember that you are trying to cut the pizza. So inside this pizza, I need to put some data inside that. So now I have partitioned the hard disk. Inside that, I need to store the data. So how do I store the data? So this data, I can simply start storing 1, 2, 3, 4 and until the entire pizza is over. But in order to have a separation, that means I should store my my personal file in a certain location, or Excel sheet in a certain location, and things like this. Now from my pizza, what I'm going to abstract is, I already had a hard disk. Now I have a separate section, that is, this is just a C drive or whatever it is. Now inside this, I am again going to cut this into small pieces, and then I'm going to store the data. So in order to make the clear-cut difference between the files, I need to write in such a way that it has certain headers and it has certain ending. So only then I can start reading this and end reading this. For example, if you have an Excel sheet, it has a lot of tables. So you must know where is the beginning of the table and where is the ending of table. Only then you can read the Excel sheet, right? Or else it's just like you will put a loop, and until you get the end, there is no end. You will keep on reading. So this calls for a file format. So this file format is what calls for different softwares writing in different formats. That means their headers are completely different. For example, I'll just open an Excel sheet somewhere here. Okay, some documents. So you can see that there are several files here, and Windows automatically knows by the file extension. It knows what is the type, and that is why you see this icon. But it doesn't mean that it can open only in MS document. So in fact, you can open this even in Notepad. Okay, but when you open in Notepad, yesterday we saw that it was all unreadable. Similarly, this is unreadable on the Notepad. That is because only Microsoft Word knows how to decode this data that we just draw in a moment ago. So it has a structure, and it is particular to those softwares. So now when you have in previous days, I think around 15 years ago, there was less of open source softwares. So Microsoft had their own softwares to handle Microsoft Word, Microsoft PPT, and all these things. And when you copy and try to play it in Windows, in Linux, such as Ubuntu or whatever in those days, so it was not getting opened. So that is because they do not have standard way of communicating to to different operating systems. Now there are different standardization that has happened. So that is why you see that now XLS is named as XLSX because it follows a certain standard, and it can be ported to Linux machine, Mac machine, or any on your Android phones as well as. Okay, now people have written programs in order to read all those files. So that is these are the challenges around the files. Now in fact, when you are using a PC, you just open something, and you just double click on top of it. Okay, so that is simply we take it for granted. That is because we are using it as general users. For example, I double clicked on this PPT and it opened in nicely here. So we do not know what are the internals, and we have taken it for granted. But as programmers, we should always appreciate what is happening in the background, because maybe it throws some error, maybe saying that okay, this file is it's not saved, and it has old data, or I'm not able to open this because of this error. Now you will be able to relate to those errors. So the same errors you will face when you are trying to open a file inside inside your program, especially in Python. So now let us get into the what are file operations. Now we learnt that in first concept, this file is also can be translated, or can be termed as object inside Python, and inside this file we have attributes and we have functions. So let us just get into interpreter and see what is this file actually. Okay. So I have written 2 or 3 lines of code. So in Python, all this opening file and things like that is all abstracted, and you have a simple function called as open. So this open, what it does is, we saw that in the inside the pizza, that is inside a partition, we stored a certain file, and file has certain headers and a certain telling that it is ending. So that ending is nothing but called as EOF. You might have heard about this already. EOF is end of file. So that is how any program knows that till when, what is the ending of that file, and it stops reading that. So there is also a header of the file. Okay, so this header in object oriented terminology, you can call this as file descriptor. So let us try to just open this file. So this file, I have this file already here on the hard disk. I'll just copy this statement, paste it here. Okay, this file is nothing but, I have simply created a small file here, just a text file. So text file is by default supported in Python. That means Excel sheet is not by default supported, PPTs are not supported, and Microsoft Doc is not supported. That is why you require different libraries that is provided by people who have written it. So they know the internals of these files, how is the file beginning and what is the data structure inside the file, and then they abstract it and give it to you as a handle. That means you can read rows inside an Excel sheet in Python using certain libraries. That is why you won't be able to open. You will be able to open, but you won't be able to read data inside that. It will look like just like whatever we did in the notepad. We just dragged and dropped one document file inside this. So it will have gen characters. You won't be able to read it. Okay. So, but text file is also like that, but by default it is supported in Python. So if people have written this function as not supporting text characters by default, it will look like gen characters. But by default Python supports text file. That is why you will be able to see what is inside that. Now open is a function which takes in file name and it gives a file descriptors. That means beginning of the file. So now let us look at use dir since I told you that is an object, now let us look at what are the things that is in object, just like we looked inside the car. So there are these operations. So there are read lines, read through, write, writable, truncate, tell, seekable, flush, read lines, new lines, readable, all these functions. So let us try to explore one of this. I will just do read lines function. Great. Now this read lines is a function which is there inside this object. It just has read line by line. What is the input? It takes input as a file. This is a function inside this object, so it accesses this file descriptors internally. So it takes that file descriptor and starts reading from this, and it has put each line in a list. That means let us look at the length of this list. That means what LAN function does is it just calculates the length. Okay, so this is one of the useful functions. I have to store this into some temporary variable, and then length x. What is happening? Read lines. Okay, nothing is there. Why did I modify this? Okay. Okay, great. I think I modified the file descriptor. Okay. So now length is 4. That means we have 4 lines. So what is x? If you look at this, it has put each line in a separate entry in the list, and you can see there is no /n character anywhere in this file, but it has put. That is nothing but the invisible character that we saw here, the carriage return and LF, line fit. So that is represented in Python. So in Python we just use /n. That is because this is machine portable, and internally it translates it to carriage return. So this is just a new line. So this means new line, right? So that is about the file and its properties. Now let us also look at, there are different modes. For example, I cannot by default by default this opens in a read mode. That means you can open a file in read mode. You won't be able to write into that. So let us try to I have opened it here. Now let me try to fd dot write something. Okay, now it is telling that okay, this file is not writable. That is because by default it has open in read mode. So in order to open this in write mode, I need to specifically tell that hi Python, open this file in write mode. So that is characterized by W. So there are several different options to open in a file. So you just need to know readable mode, writable mode, and append mode. Append mode is nothing but I can if I open file in append mode, the file pointer will when you try to append, it knows the ending and it will try to append it in the ending. Right. So that is about append mode. So write mode, now I am opening it in write mode. Let me try to write it again here. Write hi. Okay. Now it tells that okay, I have written 2 characters. That is all about it. And let us try to look what is inside this FD now. Read lines. Okay. FD read lines. Okay. Now I need to write. So this means read as well as write mode. So in fact, you can open file in only in write mode. And okay, now you can see that I have written hi, and then all the contents that is here is gone. Let me just close this. Now it is asking whether, now this why it is asking is because this is present in RAM, and it knows that okay, something has gone written into that, and in fact this is not saved yet. Okay, so let me cancel it in order to now it has written it, and I just don't save. I'll say don't save. Okay. And then let me open it again here. You can see that only this is written. All right, that means the old data is overwritten. So in fact you can open this in append mode. Let me add this. Let me write something again. It got vanished. Something. Append mode. Okay, forget about it. Now read lines, and then write world hello hi, and it let us read. Okay, it's going off. I think that is because of this FDs. Okay, let us find out that later. I'll just find out that. Okay, let us not waste time on this. I just wanted to show you how the file gets appended, but these are the operations. I'll debug it. Okay, so we're running out of time. So there are three. Okay, oh, I think it is getting appended here. That is why it's not coming. That's the okay. Now we have opened in two programs. That is one on the terminal and one on here. I think that is why there was inconsistency. That is why it is not showing up. Okay, but you must remember that there is read mode, there is write mode, and there is append mode. So these are the modes, and there are several other modes. You can open it in binary mode and all these things. So these are the concepts that rules the files. So these are I hope you understood everything about files and objects and then inputs. So these concepts, if you know from the basics how it works, and then you will never whenever you because most of the times, that means out of 10 times 8 times you will always fix your own code. So in this major chain, that is 80% of your time you will be reading and fixing your code. Only 20% is what you write code. So you need to know what is happening internally. So that is why you must be knowing the basics, and basics actually are easy, but since the concepts are too big, people don't try to read all these things and tell you about these things. So this is about the files. So that is all I had, these three simple concepts. Now I have an assignment for you. So assignment is given a file, read the file and read odd numbered lines and create a new text file. What you need to do is copy this text and put it in some .txt file, read that file, and this is a new line. So this is line number 1, this is line number 2, line number 3, and line number 4. So read it line by line and take only odd numbered lines and create a new file. So in this it will take about 5 to 10 lines of code, but you will face a lot of errors because you're doing for the first time, and then when you're trying to process, the file won't get saved. They will get some tracebacks and things like that. And since we know the basic concepts, now you can relate to it and fix it easily. And even when you read on Stack Overflow or on Google, on any other blog, you will now understand what is actually happening. So you will be able to solve those errors. Okay, so that is all I had, guys. So any questions, please ask me now, or offline is also fine. Okay, so that's all I had. Any questions here?
No.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Uh,
Yeah,
hello,
yeah.
Digan.
that after doing the append,
Uh-huh.
to check whether the data appended in the text file or not, after append we have to do the read mode, then we can see what we appended, the total content of information in text file. Can we try that?
Right.
You are not audible, Digant.
Hello? I'm not audible. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, you wanted. So that is what. Okay. First, you need to know what it returns. Okay. So you wanted to check whether the things are appended or not, right?
Yeah, first we will put it as hi first, thereafter we will
Yeah, yeah,
read
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Again, we will append as a hello. Then thereafter, if you want
Yeah,
to see the
that is
total
what. Yeah, that is what
information,
I
we
was
have to
trying to
read
do.
it.
There was some problem. I think that is because I had opened it here. So let me just quit it. No, I don't have to quit it. I will write it here. Okay. Um, okay. There are several modes. I'll just the class is if you're running late to your office, you can drop off. So I'll just explain Shivanand about this. So file modes in Python. Okay. So let us just get into what are the various modes. Meanwhile, just what is the content here already? Okay, hi, hello, is there. And then let me. Okay, it is. I think it is just flushing out. Hmm, flushing out. Okay.
What is exact a plus? What it will do a plus? A means it will do the append. A
Yeah,
plus means
yeah. We will just look at that. Okay. So I'll just explain those things. Yeah. There are several. Okay. So there are several combinations. So basically, you have read and write. Okay. So R means only reading, so that we saw, and
okay.
you can read it as binary format. In fact, you can try to, if you know the logic of opening an Excel sheet, you can read it open in binary mode, and you try to parse that binary format, and then R plus means reading and writing. So you can look at the documentation anyways. So you don't have to remember. That means, for example, if you face an error, just look up online and fix the problem. Now we were looking about a place. Opens a file. I think there is some disturbance. Okay, opens a file in both in appending and reading. I think the file pointer is at end opens in append mode. If file does not exist, it creates a new file and for reading and
Okay.
writing. Okay, so that is what a plus does. I think only a means it just open for appending. Okay, let us try to.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the main. I think there won't be any data here for because it's not.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, what is FD, sir?
Okay, FD is just a variable. You can put it as x, y, whatever you want. It's just a variable.
Okay, okay.
Okay, why we usually okay. In fact, one of the mistakes that we people who are new to programming do is we name variable something like x1 and then next variable as x2 and things like that. So that is a bad practice. That is because it creates confusion while reading the code. So what you should be doing is you should name it in such a way that it is relatable to you. So that is why I have used FD. FD means file descriptors. So we are reading about we are discussing about pizza, right? So you have a pizza, and then you have that header which reads the data inside that pizza. So that a beginning of file. So that beginning of file is what you require to start reading the file. So that is called as file descriptor. So that is why I have named it as FD. So you can name it as FO as well, just to. It is also a file object. You can name it as FO. So whatever it is, but it should be readable. So for your purpose. In fact, you can name it as x1, x2, whatever it is, but it should be always in a nice way. Right?
Okay.
Okay, try to do these assignments. That is because if you do not do these assignments, because we are in the first class we didn't do anything. We learned about basics. In coming sessions, all these concepts will be used in coming assignments. It is going to get harder, and then if you do not spend time, then what happens is you'll just see the session and you will forget about it. Please try to spend some half an hour to 1 hour. And initially you will face a lot of problems. Maybe each and every line you will have problems, and then more and more you program, better it gets. So please try to write programs, or else you won't be able to catch up in next sessions, especially from next week. It gets harder. So try to do these assignments, and I have put the deadlines for assignments as Sunday or Monday. So you have ample amount of time. Try to work it out. Okay. Thank you a lot for your time.